So, welcome to this next session, where we talk about a very urgent and hot topic about mobility and transport, and how we can revolutionize the sector of mobility and transport. I'm Insa Schniedermeier. I'm a journalist and a communication strategist. I think that's not an applause for me. And I'll be your host for the next 1 hour 15. Let me start with one number. 25%, or 1/4. That is the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that is in the EU today, totally emitted only by transport. And not only that, transport also causes air pollution, noise pollution, and habitat fragmentation. So it's fair to say that the transport sector today has a huge negative impact, not only on the environment, but also on human health. This shows the shift away from fossil fuels in transport is crucial, not just for reducing emissions, but for building a sustainable future that benefits people, the planet, and the economy. This transformation in transport and mobility requires bold leadership and big ideas. That's where we start today, also at Change Now and with this keynote and panel. I'm very pleased and excited to introduce you to our first keynote speaker, Stientje van Veldhoven. She's the Vice President and Regional Director for Europe at the World Resources Institute. Stientje has played a key role in shaping European climate, energy and sustainable policy, including as Minister of Environment and Housing in the Netherlands. Please join me in welcoming her on stage. Welcome, Stientje.
So, let me see if this works. Yes, it does. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for being so energetic at the end of this full day with lots of conferences, but what a pleasure to be here. And thank you also so much for Change Now, for inviting me to speak about transport and about the end to fossil fuels. It's a topic that, as was mentioned, I was responsible for in my previous role. And for the World Resources Institute, it is also one of the key shifts that we need to make for people, climate, and nature, because we really need to look at those three elements at the same time. And for those of you that may be less familiar with the work of the World Resources Institute, we are a global research organization that is working to improve people's lives across the world, protect nature, and halt climate change. But today our focus is on transport and cities. Why, you may wonder? Actually, because, to put it very simply, the world is moving to town. Already today, more than half of the world's population lives in cities. And actually, in the next 30 years, that will become 70%. So actually, this means that cities will define transport. And cities and transport, well, let's say, it has always been a bit of a love and hate relationship. In 1894, London was literally drowning in horse manure. With 50,000 horses on the streets, the city faced as much as 1,000 tons of manure every day. And this, of course, led to all kinds of nuisance and public health problems, and the Times newspaper called it the unsolvable crisis, because you cannot make horses stop eating. Yeah, we all know we traded horsepower for cars, revolutionizing urban life, but also trading our manure problem for carbon, exhaust fumes, and road unsafety. Now, this is Utrecht. It's the town where I was born in the Netherlands. And by the time that I was born, this is what it looked like on the left side. It's a bit later than when I was born, to be honest, but just about around that time. Because my colleagues are here in the room, right? They will know how to check me. But the picture on the right side is about the time that I left Dutch politics and joined the World Resources Institute. And if you look carefully, you look at those two towers, you can see it's actually the same place. It had changed completely once more. So mobility transformation, even though it may always seem so impossible, it may seem such a large endeavor, is actually of all times. And not just because we find better, faster vehicles, but also because what we value changes. Many people believe that the Netherlands were born as a cycling country. And this again is one of those myths. Many inner city squares were actually car parks. The very square before the parliament where I worked for 7 years, which is now a beautiful place with lots of terraces, etc. I don't know if you've been to The Hague, you'll know the Plein. But that was just an open space car park. But actually, Dutch moms went to the streets to protect their kids against the cars that killed them. That is what made the Netherlands a cycling country. And the recent changes to my birth town have a lot to do with ensuring a livable and resilient city in the face of a growing population, air pollution, and climate change. All this to illustrate a very simple truth. Transport's actually not about how we move. It is actually about how we live. Because transport is how we get to our jobs, to our schools, how we visit our family, our loved ones, how we get to goods and services. Transport is actually the, well, more visible, but actually also partly invisible social infrastructure of opportunity, and literally opens the way to use those opportunities. And these days, those opportunities actually go beyond access to jobs, schools, and friends. Because changing our transport now also means more energy independence. In the face of geopolitical turmoil, the end to fossil fuels has got a very different ring to it. It means more economic stability in the face of fluctuating oil prices. And in the face of public health, as toxic fumes and global warming turn transport, as it currently have it, into literally a suffocating blanket. And we all know it, transport accounts for over 20% of all global emissions. So if you just continue down the current path, that will double in 10 years. In 10 years, that emission will double because the world population is growing so fast and transport is growing so fast. As if we just do what we did, we won't only get what we got, it will get worse. But I'm an optimist, so let me phrase it differently. It's a massive opportunity. It is an opportunity that leverages electric vehicles, public transport, river and rail systems, clean freight, urban innovation. And yes, for that, we need to leverage the power of working together. So my main message to you here is, it really is not just about decarbonizing transport or the end of fossil fuels. It really is rethinking transport. That is a challenge that we face. And that question is most pressing in cities. We must start in the place where the problem and the potential is greatest. Like I said, today about half the world's population lives in cities and about 2.5 billion more people will live there. And that means like 1 billion new vehicles will get on the road unless we change things. And you know, you all know it. Once you've set your own mobility pattern, after that it's harder to change. So when you've bought that car, you're going to use it for a certain while. That just not means more people in cities. It means more congestion, more emissions, and a growing pressure on already very, very stressed and aging infrastructure. It's a question also of equity and equality. Air pollution killed over 350 people in the European Union in 2022. I come from a research organization, so you're going to get a couple of numbers in this presentation, but not too many. But a person's risk actually depends largely on where you live. Most of the deaths from exposure to fine particulate matter coming from dust, smoke, and exhaust actually harm the most poor and vulnerable quarters of our cities. And climate change and health impacts through heat also are obvious in cities. And in fact, in 2023, heat-related deaths in Europe amounted to nearly 50,000. And that number is expected to rise by 50% in 2050 if we leave climate change unabated. Heat is a major new problem, especially for European cities. They are not built to resist heat. They are usually built, especially in the northwestern part, to keep the heat in. But we are starting to face a very different problem. In cities, high temperatures are exacerbated by a large amount of traffic exhaust. Those two really form this combination of a toxic blanket. And this is worse in neighborhoods with poor infrastructures and very few green spaces. Just as in the past, urban planning has contributed to extreme heat in some areas, future choices can create cooler and more livable cities. Natural elements like tree shade, for example, can help to lower temperatures by 3 to 4 degrees. So while a tree makes a street look nice, it makes actually the living a lot nicer in that space. But of course, that space has to literally be carved out of the space that is currently taken up, and often is taken up by our current modes of transportation. On the other hand, high urban density, if designed correctly, also provides the perfect business case for solutions that can provide accessible, fast, comfortable public transport, right, if we choose to invest in it. The designation of clearly demarcated fossil fuel-free transport zone and corridors can also help to create certainty for those that have to invest. This is one of the things that I worked on when I was minister in the Netherlands, was to create this with the cities. They couldn't have done it without me. I could never have done it without them. We need to cooperate. And even in the face of changing geopolitical expectations, our expectation at the World Resources Institute is that decarbonization will continue. We are reaching tipping points in our overall transition. And as Mary Robinson said this morning, we know that the challenge is daunting. We know that it's now maybe more daunting than ever. But we need to celebrate also the successes that we've had. We can create change. And to give you a few examples, as of 2023, there were about 630 million electric buses in operation globally, and the vast majority in China. Looking ahead, the International Energy Agency projects that that number could reach 2.7 million electric buses by 2030. 2.7 billion, that is. And in the European Union, battery-supported vehicles reached about half of new purchases in 2024. So, of course, we have a legacy stock. But if we start by adding at least half of what we buy with electric, then we're starting to see massive change. To be honest, it's not easy everywhere. For electric trucks, for example, it's harder. I'm sure you're going to hear more about this from other speakers. By 2022, about 96% of all trucks in Europe still ran on diesel. So we have a major way to go. And the electric truck market in Europe, though, is on the rise, with a projected growth rate of also 50% annually. And I'm sure you all know this fable of the chess drawing board, right? When you get one and then you double and then you double, then you really start to make big changes. But of course, scaling electric freight is not just about the vehicles. It's very much also about the enabling infrastructure. It's about charging stations, maintenance hubs, battery supply chains, and of course it's about access to finance, especially for medium and small enterprises. We need to help them to make the transition, and stability and a clear course for Europe is the best way to actually get that. I think that is one of the things that Europe has, which really are one of its strongholds, is that stability, of course, that we've had in driving this transition over time. In India, because we're not just looking at Europe, of course, at the World Resources Institute. So I want to give you a few examples also what's happening across the world. In India, partners launched pilot corridors to support e-freight, focusing investment where the business case was strongest. So don't try to electrify everywhere at the same time. Find those corridors where we can actually drive that change. And today, those pilots have proven that e-trucks can pay back in under 5 years. I don't think many of us would have thought a couple of years ago that that was possible. But if we design our interventions smartly, if we work together smartly, an e-truck can have a business case which revolves in 5 years. And that success is snowballing. In 2023 alone, in India, 16 major companies signaled demand for 8,000 e-bus trucks by 2030. So that's tomorrow, right, in terms of investments. And the EU, of course, has a similar idea with green corridors. And I think it's these kind of smart solutions that work that we need to come together around and see if we can give that a push to snowball change. And these real-world testing grounds for low-emission shipping and logistics have the opportunity to become a scalable blueprint. If we are to meet our Paris agreements and EU climate goals, and let's hope for a very ambitious NDC and an ambitious 2040 target, hopefully the Commission will come forward with those soon, we have to chart also clear implementation pathways. Again, this was the call this morning. Let's make sure that we create implementation pathways, not just ambitious goals. And that means phasing out fossil fuel vehicles, right? We have to phase them out. Investing in public procurement of clean fleets. Electrifying where we can. It's often the most direct way to actually decarbonization. And integrating, of course, where we must. The EU has set a goal to reduce CO2 emissions of heavy-duty vehicles by 45% by 2030 and 90% by 2040. And the manufacturers have committed to these goals. So it means that they are investing. We have to make sure that the demand is also there. And cities and green corridors can make sure to bolster that demand and ensure that we create also those lead markets in Europe. On top of that, we have to see transport much more as a set of interconnected sectors, including rail and water transport. Because long-distance freight, rural connectivity, and certain industrial corridors will all require alternative low-carbon modes. Rail, and I'm sure we're going to hear more about it from my colleagues later on, is 3 to 5 times more fuel efficiency than road transport per ton kilometer, and only 1/3 of the CO2 emissions per ton kilometer of a truck. Inland water transport, very often overlooked, is even more efficient and emits significantly less per unit of cargo. And for certain goods, even pipelines can ensure zero-emission transport. But the catch is, of course, investment. In many countries, and I was responsible also for rail, so I'm afraid I've encountered some of those questions myself. Rail and river systems are neglected. It's fragmented. In Europe, the European railway system is incredibly fragmented. It's so hard to get actually that rail transport across. But we have to be able to solve that. As a European Union, we have to step up our efforts to integrate our markets. That is what will give us competitiveness, and the rail sector should absolutely be one of them. If we are serious about systemic shifts, we must reinvest in multimodal logistics, ensuring rail, road, and river all work seamlessly together. Transport is a system. Let's start to treat it like that. The European Commission does say that, but I must say, I don't know if you've seen it, but so far I haven't seen yet that super compelling, convincing systemic approach that combines integrated planning together with smart data systems. AI can lead to enormous optimization of our transport systems, but also energy transport coordination. We are in certain ways so terribly inefficient in the way that we use the available renewable energy. We need to start connecting our energy strategy to our transport strategy much more for efficiency and scaling. And therefore, we need more policy coherence. We need to look at transport as a system, see how we can make that efficiency higher. And of course, public-private partnerships. There is no way we can get this done on our own. We all need the other side. Public-private partnerships will absolutely be key. Systemic rethinking means rethinking how we run things, making systems work better together, putting people, especially those that are maybe not always included, into the room. And yes, of course, it's hard, and yes, it takes time. But going alone takes much more time. Let me conclude with this. We know transformation is possible. About 130 years, the means of over 130 years, the means of mass transport, horses and carriages, were leading to an overflow of manure, leading to nuisance, hygiene, and health problems. 50 years ago, and in some countries around the world that's still the case, people are choking on exhaust fumes. Leaded petrol polluted the air and harmed public health. A decade ago, few believed that today we would see the levels of renewable energy that we are seeing now. It was actually when I started to be very active in climate policy in the Dutch parliament, and people said, well, it's never going to grow fast enough. And there's been one consistent element in all the International Energy Agency reports, is that they underestimated the speed of growth of renewable energy. Now electric vehicles account for almost 1/4 of new car registrations in the EU. And this transition has brought together allies that didn't work together before. Now we must do the same for a very urgent clean transport transformation. And yes, Europe should aim to lead. We are one of the biggest emitters. We have a responsibility, not just to climate, also to our own population. Because this, if we don't do this, it harms our own population. We should make this part of a world that's more healthy, more resilient, and more secure. We should aim to learn and lead and form unusual partnerships. As the world is moving to town, cities carry an ever greater responsibility to play along. Green spaces will be key in keeping cities cool and resilient, but they have to be carved out of existing city space. Therefore, decarbonization and rethinking transport go hand in hand with livable cities of the future. The technology is there. We all know that. It really is about creating the business case, and for that, we need to align partners. So my message to you, because each and every one of you is here to create change. As business leader, as a decision maker, as an innovator, is this. Let's accelerate electrification, But let's not stop there. Let's scale up rail and river and integrate them smartly. Let's transform freight, not just for climate emissions, but for opportunities and livelihoods. Let's align finance and policy to de-risk that future. Let's approach this as a system. And above all, let's do it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stientje. Thanks. So Stientje delivered already like the perfect introduction for the panel that we're about to have, because she said transport is a system. The next panel is about a mixture of leaders bringing together different modes of transport, from rail to EV, electric vehicles, and waterways. We'll discuss how we can move people and goods without burning up the planet. With me on stage are Muriel Signoret, CSO from SNCF. Gautier Chatelus, Executive Director from DRIVECO. And Stéphane Bousquet, representing the waterways from VNF France. Welcome on stage. I have your glass. Let's just switch glasses. No, ça va. Welcome on stage, everyone. So you all have your microphones here. So I would love to talk with you about opportunities to start on a positive note. So what is right now for you the most exciting development in clean mobility? So in, let's say, the next 5 to 10 years. Let's start with Muriel.
Shall I start?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. It's my first time at Change Now, so it's a great honor to be on this stage. And yes, indeed, I believe we have a great opportunity in the upcoming years to promote and to increase the rail system, the rail transportation. As you know, today, I'm from SNCF Group, as you have guessed, today rail is the greenest transportation system. However, it accounts for only 10% of the total amount of passengers and goods transportation. Yet, it contributes for less than 1% of the greenhouse gas emissions. So it is urgent, I believe, to call for a modal shift toward rail. So this is a great opportunity, and I believe the more people choose rail, the better the reduction of greenhouse gas emission will be.
Thanks. What about you, Gautier?
Yes, thank you. And also, I'm very happy to be there in this panel. Modal shift is a key for the change and for reducing our emissions. Anyway, road transportation will remain the main mode, and there are many places where you cannot replace efficiently road transportation. So we are really to decarbonize road transportation, and now we know that the only way to do it is electrical vehicles. And what is really challenging, or what's exciting, is that what was more a nice idea to develop 5 years ago, now we are not anymore in an emerging market. It's really a growth-up market. We are growing, so we are not in the pioneer time. We are really the time of industrialization of this industry. And so what is really exciting is to know how are we able to be leaders in this industrialization? Are we going to lag behind other areas in the world? It's feasible. It's done in Norway. China is 50% EV cars now selling, so they are a huge market. They are coming in. And what is really exciting is that how can we pass from this pioneer role to being really the new mobility of the future and everything going electrical. So that's a huge challenge for us, but really exciting.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for this invitation to Change Now. It's the first time for us at VNF. VNF just made three words about VNF. We are the public operator that manages French waterways. So that's about 7,000 kilometers of waterways, and that's our job. So for us, I do believe, and we do believe at VNF, that waterways are really on the side of solutions to face climate change, to avoid the effects of extreme weather events by regulating water levels, by regulating water events, and also as a transport system, as it was said in the introduction, this is a transport system which is very low emitting of CO2 and which is very low energy using. So it's really a transport system that is on the side of solutions, and for various reasons I do believe that in the future public decision makers, businessmen will turn again towards river transportation.
Thanks. I would also love to talk with you about the last mile, because if we zoom into cities, this is really like right now the biggest emitter with like 30% of emissions. So how do you envision to decarbonize this last mile? Muriel.
Well, at SNCF, we develop and we experiment innovative solutions to tackle this last mile challenge indeed. First of all, maybe you don't know it, but the French population, 90% of the French population live within 10 kilometers from a train station. So we aim at turning this 3,000 train station into hubs for public transportation. And these hubs for public transportation will allow us to have better connection with buses, with tramways, and we also develop parking spaces for bikes. Our ambition is to double the number of parking spaces for bikes by 2030, and we'll have 90,000 parking spaces for bikes. So this is in the short term. In the longer term, we are working on 24 projects of metropolitan express services, which will connect city centers with their suburb. But I believe that the last mile challenge doesn't only concern the city centers, but also the rural area. And we are developing innovation again, like for instance a shuttle, which will be able to go from the rail to the road to access small villages. And last but not least, regarding the freight sector, we have small lines like what we call capillary lines, which are directly connected to our clients' factory and warehouses. And of course, when it's not possible, we use trucks, and if possible, decarbonized trucks.
Yeah. What is your views on this,
I would say
and Stéphane?
Yeah, from the road perspective, I think that's the best market for electrification. Distances are not so long, so the issue of charging on the go is not a big issue. You have a regular kilometers, so very sufficient. Even from a financial point of view, we have all the technical solutions from the bicycle to I think Volta trucks that will be present after that for more regional trucks delivery. So everything is there. We have all the technical solutions. Financially, it's worth it. So it's not just about decarbonizing to be green. It's also it's more efficient. So I think it's easy. Quite easy challenge to be made. We still need some regulation to avoid having very old, very polluting vehicles still being there with a very low cost, but very polluting because people just don't pay the cost, which prevent from really passing everything to the electricity. But normally, within 5 years, we should all the big city centers and the smaller city centers should not have any more fuel deliveries. I think for me, everything is there for that.
Yeah. For the waterways, I can imagine it's a bit more difficult, right? Because they are not waterways everywhere.
As for waterways, maybe remind 2 or 3 obvious benefits of waterways according to the last mile delivery. Maybe the first one, that waterways is a way of transport that is less emitting of CO2, as I said before, but is also a way of transport that is generating very few noise, that is generating any traffic jams. So it's very city compatible, I would say. You can live along a river with a boat much easier than you live along a highway, for example. So it's a way of coming across the cities. We are here inside of Paris, in the heart of Paris, and the Seine is a few hundred meters from us. The highway is not here, but the Seine is here. So we are really inside the heart of the cities, first of all. And secondly, we have a lot of capacity reserves. We can accept, for example, in the Seine River, about 4 times more traffic than today. So it's very easy to move goods and freight by rivers. And maybe remind that this is the most ancient infrastructure of transport, because in the Middle Age, Paris and other big cities were built by bringing materials by boats, and so it's a very ancient system. And maybe for those who don't live along a river, we can combine river transport with low-emitting systems like electric cargo bicycles, or with electric trucks like IKEA, for example, with delivering its customers in Paris by using a combination of electric boats and electric trucks. So it's a way of rivers are a way of getting deliveries inside of the cities with about no noise, no pollution, and a very acceptable solution.
I would also love to talk about challenges with you, and I would love to start with you, because now we have also climate change happening. So now waterways are really, like, as you said, a sustainable way of transportation, carbon emission, like they are not very high, but what happens in the future if it gets hotter, and rivers might dry out? So is this a real risk, and like, how do you tackle this one?
So, of course, waterways have a specificity that it's an infrastructure that is a natural infrastructure, because we are depending on the weather, and of course, if tomorrow weather is harder, it's going to be harder for us to ensure and to deliver the service. So it's a problem that we take in account, of course, but I would say that we are already quite resilient about these events. For example, in the Seine basin, there are reservoir dams that can provide water in summers, for example, when the weather is not providing itself enough water. We have also navigation dams all along the rivers that can help us to maintain a certain level of water to be sufficient to ensure the navigability of the river. And of course, above all that, we continue to invest in our dams, in our systems, to be better on monitoring, to know better the amount of water that is coming inside our rivers and that is coming outside our rivers, and to be more efficient finally. So that's maybe a potential problem, but we face it, and we are truly confident in the fact that our resilience will be helpful for the future.
Gautier, with DRIVECO, you're building the infrastructure for EV in Europe, in France and beyond. So do you think we're really ready for mass electrification, or could there be maybe problems with scaling, equity? So what is the bottleneck there?
Yeah, thank you. Of course, yeah, we have progressed a lot, but it's still a long-term issue. Maybe you can put it as a chicken and egg. I would say 3-4 years ago, people were complaining there was not enough public stations to charge the EV cars. Well, today we have built a very consistent network all over Europe with very good, more and more, better and better features. Like now we have in our network, we have the reservation 7 days in advance, auto charge, everything that can give a very smooth experience to the EV driver. But then the cars are less, we don't have enough cars. So today we have a lack of cars on our station. We have too many stations as compared to the cars. So we are not anymore the egg, we are the chicken, or the vice versa, I don't know. So to be able to tackle that and this challenge, that is a 20 years challenge to really have everything going to EV cars, we need very consistent, stable policies at the European level, at the national level, so that no stop and go on subsidies. Maybe we have to reduce subsidies progressively because it's getting more and more efficient, but we have to have a sustainable and long-term vision, predictability. If we can get this, we still be able to have the long-term investment that we need, the money of the investor for the charge point, for the electrical system, because it has to bring the electricity until the stations. So that's very important to give this long-term view. And that's also important that it will help also all the car industry to focus and keep on going with all the investment they have to do to switch to EV cars. Because if they don't have this long-term vision, they may not be able to invest sufficiently. And if we lag behind, it will be very, very difficult because, as we said, that was seen earlier, in Asia, there are a lot of progresses and they are doing things better and better. So we have to keep the pace to be the leaders, and so that's really about the political will and keeping the policies not changing all the time and give a very long-term view so the people can invest on both sides, on the cars and on the EV charging.
Thanks. Muriel, what do you see as the biggest roadblock in the clean energy and mobility transition right now?
Well, as I said, to decarbonize the transport sector right now, we need to promote and to increase rail. And our ambition, our objective is to increase the market share of rail from 10 to 20%. And to do so, we need rail, we need train to be more attractive. We need to have a better quality of service, and we are well aware of that. But the mother of all battles is the infrastructure. In France, we have a very vast rail network, which is the second largest in Europe after Germany. It is also very old. The average age of our network is around 30 years. So we need to invest, to maintain it, to upgrade it, and to modernize it. We want to avoid the Germany's collapse. I don't know if you're aware of it, but the punctuality of train there dropped to 60%. 60% is an extremely bad score. In comparison, the French train, about 90% of the French train arrive on time, more than 90%. So why that? Because Germany has suffered or is suffering from decades of underinvestment. So how much do we need in France for our infrastructure? We believe we need 4.5 billion of euros a year. This is a lot of money, especially considering the economic situation and the public finance today. So we are well aware of the necessity to identify and to secure external resources. It could be, for instance, revenues from the emission trading system in the EU, or it could be the creation of a contribution of a heavy-duty vehicle contribution. The French government is about to launch a mobility financing conference in the upcoming days, and I really hope that it will seize such opportunities.
Yeah. So I can confirm that what you said about German trains. I'm German, so it's really, they are more not on time than they are on time, unfortunately. So I would love to talk to you also about synergies, because now we have someone from like representing rail, representing EV, and representing ships. So what could be interesting partnerships, maybe between also you three, that can help the mobility transformation?
Well, of course, we will need planes, we will need trucks, we will need cars for a very long time, and so it is urgent. I mean, you can't go by train to New York, and maybe you'll still need to go to New York. So it is urgent to decarbonize these modes. But talking maybe a little bit on a broader point of view about partnership and synergy, I want to pinpoint the fact that we need to work with all the ecosystem. It is key. We are all interdependent, and there will be no lone winner. Take purchasing, for instance. At SNCF, we buy for 60 billion euros a year from 20,000 suppliers. So we need to foster our suppliers to decarbonize, to take actions in decarbonization. So to do so, we have increased the weight of CSR criteria in the call for tenders, and we implemented a few years ago an additional 5% criteria dedicated to decarbonation. So yes, I think it is our duty, especially as a public company, to foster and to promote synergies and partnerships.
What about you, Stéphane?
As far as we are already collaborating with the various actors, from transport actors, we are partners with the SNCF, for example, to provide complete solutions for industrial that want to move goods. We also work with energy specialists, for example, to identify alternative solutions for fueling our boats, like electrifying, of course, but also biofuel, hydrogen. This is very, very important for us to innovate on this various fields, and we are an activity sector, a business sector that is too small to innovate alone. So we work with other many other actors on energy, and we also work with our users, with the company, with the shippers. For example, for the Olympic Games in Paris, it was a wonderful opportunity to greenize the float of the boats that are working in the Paris sector. About 1/3 of them were electrified for the opening ceremonies of the Olympic Games. So we do many things for innovation, for decarbonize still farther than we are already today, and we do that with other partners, of course.
Quickly to you.
Yeah, there are two levels. On the global car industry and mobility industry, we need to have all the actors being in line with going to electrification. We have a lot of pure players, like we are. So we are only interested in EV cars. But you have all the incumbent, the old car manufacturer, all the company, the services around it, leasers, sellers, and so on, who are still dominated by a fuel car industry, because we are still selling more cars. So it's very difficult for them to change their model, to go to the EV cars, a new formation. They need to be. So there is a lot of education, and I think we need to this effort in education in all the sectors, and also to the other people to say, no, EV cars, it's good, and it's easy, it works well. You have all the solutions for charging. So we have this is a synergy, I would say, between all the players, the ecosystem, and also toward with the public authorities, toward education of the saying, no, it's easy to do EV car today, and it's becoming even economical to have an EV car. And on the second hand, we need to improve the interfaces between the different modes. I think that we need to have easier interface between the rail and the trucks. And it would be stupid to have a few trucks coming and charging on a train. We should have everything electrified from the train to the truck. Maybe also electrified train somewhere, sometime. And the same for passengers. So we have to improve the intermodality hubs, focusing on efficiency, fluidity, but also on bringing the good energy solutions. Maybe hydrogen is one of the elements, electricity and mutualizing, not thinking each mode adjacent, but together. So to improve this intermodality, which is key also, because it's not only about electrifying the trucks. We need some more goods to be on the railways or on rivers or canals.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, our time is up already with this amazing panel. Thank you so much for your insights. It was really interesting. And yeah, if you have more questions to the panelists, please find them later. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So we stay talking about the topic of EV, electric vehicles, and we move to trucks. So don't run away, because my next guest for the Fireside Chat is the co-founder and executive chairman of Decarbonize Energy. And not only that, he's also the founder of Volta Trucks. Welcome on stage, Carl-Magnus Norden.
Hear me?
Hello, yes?
Okay, very
Can we
good.
all hear Carl-Magnus?
Yeah, thank you very much. Nice
Welcome.
being here and nice seeing you in real life. So,
Yes, same.
yeah.
We had a pre-call before, so we spoke via the screen.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in your journey. Could you please start by just explaining how you came up, because you're the founder of Volta Trucks. Maybe you quickly explain what Volta Trucks does, how you founded it, and then also how this led you to co-found Decarbonize Energy.
Yeah, no, well, just to present myself, I started a company called Volta Trucks. It's about 6 years ago now, but the idea was more starting, I would say, 2016 or something like that. 2016, 1st of April, Elon Musk launched the Model 3, which was basically, I think, the sea change in electric cars anyway. Before that, yes, there have been some efforts and so on, but they were relatively minor. But as we all know, the Model 3 got, I think, a few 100,000 orders in a few weeks' time for a car that didn't exist. So to me, that was really a kind of a signal. Here is something happening. Here is a change that we really is starting and a trend. And of course, very early on, even already in September 16, most of the car industry came to Paris and said they should go electric. On the truck side, almost nobody said anything. It's still 2018, actually, very few of the truck companies believed in electrification. So, but of course, trucks is a very big polluter, and they are driving in cities, especially distribution trucks. So my thinking was, if nobody else is doing it, I have to do it. So we started the company 2019, as I said, we got the first funding, and then we build an electric truck from scratch, which is different actually from all the trucks you still see, electric trucks. They are built on another design. They're built on a design for a diesel truck, which is quite a big difference actually, because if you really use the electric drivetrain, you have other advantages what we try to capture. It became a much safer truck. This was a distribution truck, so going into the cities, etc. But anyway, so but now I'm very happy to say that all the big OEMs, all the big truck manufacturers are really serious about electrification. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to see Renault in Lyon, but it goes for all of the big ones: Renault, Volvo, Daimler, Scania, MAN. All of them are serious. All of them have very firm plans for what percentage of electrification they should have by 2030. About 35% of the sales. It's also pushed a little bit by EU legislation, but my firm belief is that all of them are very serious. They want to go electric, and they want to go reduce the CO2 emissions. Of course, they are also looking at China. I came back from China a month ago. In Shenzhen, as you maybe know, all the buses, all the taxis, all the scooters, at least half the cars and almost all the trucks are electric. So that it can be done is already proven. It's just for us to adjust and accelerate.
Why do you think is it that we're slower in Europe, and why is it not that we are faster already in the incorporation of
Well,
EV trucks?
I think it's obviously, I mean, Europe is very democratic, so there are a lot of people having an opinion. There is an inertia for all new technology. So even the big OEMs today, they have to convince their own personnel, they have to retool their plants, they have to obviously train all their service people all over the networks. They have to get their supply chain in order for electric. There is different things, difficult things to adjust. Why it's not going faster? It also has so far been a more expensive technology. Yes, we of course try to tell to the market that the total cost of ownership is on par or maybe lower, but the sticker price has been maybe twice as high as a diesel truck. It's difficult. Somebody mentioned before here that a lot of the trucks you see on the road here, the average age of a truck in Europe is more than 12 years. So basically, half of them are already depreciated. So the only thing they have is running costs, which is obviously in an industry with small margins, that is very important. But to me, the trend is already going. The problem is how do we get all the different stakeholders together to work in the same direction. And somebody mentioned here there are a lot of inefficiencies in the systems, etc. I think that's the trick. How do we bring people together? I think the willingness is all over. So it's not a problem that people sort of loving diesel and, you know, I like to pollute the nature and I like my children to grow up in a bad environment, etc. Nobody is that. It's just the inertia of getting it together and bringing people together.
Yeah, it's these legacy systems like so often,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I would also love to talk with you about money, so investments. You have 2 impact investors invested in your company. Was this a deliberate choice to go with impact investors, or how did this come about?
I think, well, that's of course taking us to the second phase in my journey in electrification, which is starting Decade Energy. Yeah. And the idea with Decade Energy was when I saw everybody, all the truck manufacturers going there, and I'm convinced that in a couple of years' time, somewhere there, 26, maybe 26, 27, it will be cheaper to buy an electric truck than a diesel truck. And when we come to that stage, obviously nobody wants to go stay on an old technology, fossil fuel. So to me, what will be the bottleneck in the future is to charging. We talked about the charging for cars. Today you have fixed part of that, and when the next surge comes, it will be a shortage again. It will go like this. But for trucks, it's more unique. Some of them want to charge along the motorways. People estimate about 20% will be do on the motorways. Most of them will do it in the depots. And the depots today have very little demand for electricity. So the problem is more to bring the electricity, enough electricity to the grid connections, etc., to the depots where the trucks are parked or where they load or offload. So that is our vision, is that will be the bottleneck. So Decade Energy, we try to mitigate that foresee the surge in electric trucks and make the customers or the people driving trucks better prepared.
Yeah. And about the impact investors, so...
When it comes to, for me, that became almost natural, I would say, that, I mean, we have a vision, we have a mission, and we want to associate ourselves with people who has the same vision and mission for going forward. And obviously we are, I mean, the CO2 reductions, the stopping global warming, etc., is important for any impact investor. I think in our pitch today is what has happened over the last couple of months almost, obviously with defense, European defense, resilience of the systems, the energy systems, resilience of the transport systems. All these things I think are coming even higher up on the agenda today, which I think is very good. Because that, if we go, and the only way is renewables for Europe. Europe imports fossil fuel for 375 billion euro a year. So if we could bring that down, somebody said a couple of billion is a lot of money. Yes, it's a lot of money, but it's a fraction of what we spend on fossil fuels. And if we can bring that down, if we can do, obviously electrify as quickly as possible, we will have a much more resilient system. And that's super important for defense.
Yeah, so talking about defense, which is the current geopolitical situation that kind of really raised the topic of defense a bit more. And you said also in our pre-call, from a defense point of view, we should go electric.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Oh, yeah. I mean, as I said, if you are dependent on oil and gas, Europe doesn't produce any oil and gas. So we are depending on people providing us with that all the time. We saw when the Russians cut the gas pipeline, etc. It can happen overnight. Even import of oil is obviously having come by ships to us. So we have a dependence that is constant from other people. If we went as much as possible renewable, obviously the energy is produced locally. So, and if we then, that is on the supply side. On the demand side, if we then go electric with all the vehicles, we produce it locally, we have a much more resilient system. And what we are proposing then, and what we're working a lot right on now, is installing battery storage. So if you have a battery storage in your house, if you have solar cells on your roof and you have a battery storage and you have an electric vehicle in your garage, even if somebody cuts the electricity tomorrow, you could stay up, basically. It's the same thing with the transport system, distribution system. If you have storage in the depots, you can continue doing deliveries, etc., over a period of time. If you then generate locally as well by solar or wind, obviously you can continue going. And I think we are, from a defense point of view, especially in the bigger cities, if we wouldn't have any transport going into the Paris anymore from the depots across, obviously people would almost start starving in a week's time or something like that. So it's super important.
Let's stick with the topic of energy independence for Europe a little bit more. So do you think that the European countries are moving fast enough right now? Or what needs to happen that we can really reach this energy independence soon?
I don't think we are moving fast enough, obviously, but I think there is a lot of willingness, and I think it has come higher up on the agenda. I think we have had this ambivalence between, okay, do we want to, I mean, all renewables are produced in China. It's a fact. And if Europe should build up the same supply chain and the same manufacturing, etc., would take us years. So if we want to have a short-term solution, we just have to say China is the supplier. The good thing for us is that the prices are going down. Chinese have overproduction already of everything, renewables, batteries, etc. And the US are stopping imports. So obviously we will have more and lower prices in the future. And personally, I think we just have to say thank you and buy as much as possible and install as much as possible as quickly as we can. So I think there is a relatively easy solution short term to accelerate this. And I think that we will also, the energy price we pay will also be reduced. I mean, a big problem for the European industry is that the energy in Europe costs 3 times more than in China or in the US. So a lot of industries are not competitive due to that. So we have to, just to stay in the game, we have to reduce our costs. We have to go renewable as quickly as possible.
So what is your vision for the European mobility and transport sector for the next 5 to 10 years? So what would be your dream for the mobility sector?
I think it's, I mean, as I said before about trucks, when we come to the tipping point that an electric vehicle is cheaper than a diesel vehicle, nobody will buy the old stuff. Now even, I mean, there has always been this charging time has been something car owners talked about. Last week, BYD and CATL came out and said they can charge a car in 5 minutes, so faster than almost than you do at the normal petrol station. And prices, I mean, obviously of Chinese, they are the leaders in all this. Prices are coming down dramatically. So when we reach that tipping point, if we don't make it too complicated, almost too many motion regulations, etc., I think it will come automatically. And then if you ask about timing, I think by 2030 we will be there. I think the next couple of years will, I mean, a lot is happening right now. 2020, this year, 26 is maybe a little bit slower, but it will be exponential. But then the bottleneck will be charging and enough electricity in the right places.
And what is for Decade Energy? What is your concrete next step right now? Maybe also for this year, what you're excited about?
Well, I'm excited about the, you know, we started the company about a year ago. We did a slight pivot, I would say, 5 months ago. Because we have this vision of the depot of the future. A depot of the future should be an electric truck, should be obviously chargers, should be PV on the roof, should be a battery storage, and should be grid connection. And we are developing a software that integrates all these data streams, so make it as efficient as possible. We thought that we should start on the truck side, the market we know, the chargers, etc. But we felt that the market was not really there yet. So we could instead start on the BESS side, or the battery storage side, which is where we now are offering basically to invest and take the investments, etc., for the grid connection and the battery storage. The good thing is that the energy markets or the flexibility markets make us being able to pay for that, so our customers can be prepared when the trucks are coming. I think that's super exciting. We have a very good response from the market, and now it's scaling, hiring more people.
Sounds amazing. Unfortunately, our time is already up, but I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
And it's amazing what you're doing with Decade Energy, and yeah. So, yeah. Let's see what the future holds.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
The future is bright.
Yeah, the future is bright. Let's end it with that. Thank you so much.